The most terrifying warning I ever received did not come from a lawyer, a banker, or a private investigator. It came from my 8-year-old granddaughter. Just minutes before my birthday party began, she pulled on my sleeve, looked around to make sure nobody was listening, and whispered something that made my blood run cold. "Grandpa, my mom and dad are talking about your money. They said after the party, everything will belong to them." At first, I thought she was confused. 3 days later, I realized she had just saved me from the biggest betrayal of my life. My name is Robert Dawson. I am 71 years old, a retired construction company owner, and until recently, I believed I had a close family. After 40 years of hard work, I had built a comfortable life. I was never a billionaire, but I had done well. I owned my home outright, had a healthy retirement account, and had enough savings to enjoy my remaining years without worrying about bills. Most importantly, I thought I had raised my son Ethan to value honesty and family above everything else. Looking back now, I realize how blind love can make a parent. My wife, Linda, passed away 5 years ago after a long battle with cancer. Losing her nearly destroyed me. She had been my partner since high school, and after she was gone, the house felt painfully empty. During that difficult time, Ethan and his wife, Vanessa, started visiting more often. They brought my granddaughter Sophie with them, and having that little girl around helped me heal. Sophie was the light of my life. She spent weekends at my house baking cookies, watching old movies, and listening to stories about how her grandmother and I met. I trusted that family completely. That trust almost cost me everything. A few months before my 71st birthday, Ethan began talking about estate planning. He said he wanted to help me organize my finances and make sure everything would be handled smoothly in the future. At first, it sounded reasonable. He offered to connect me with financial advisors and attorneys. He even volunteered to manage some paperwork so I would not have to deal with the stress. I appreciated his concern. What I did not realize was that he seemed far more interested in my assets than my well-being. Whenever we talked, the conversation somehow returned to my house, my investments, or what would happen after I passed away. It made me uncomfortable, but I ignored the feeling. After all, he was my son. Then came my birthday party. The celebration was held at my house. Friends, relatives, neighbors, and family members filled the backyard. There were balloons, music, and enough food to feed an army. Some clauses would have allowed him to make major financial decisions on my behalf. Without Sophie's warning, I might have signed them without reading carefully. Instead, I calmly closed the folder. I told him I would review everything later with my attorney. The disappointment on his face lasted only a second, but I saw it, and that was all I needed. The next morning, I contacted my lawyer. Over the following week, we investigated every document. What we discovered shocked me. Several papers had been prepared in ways that heavily favored Ethan and Vanessa. While technically legal, they would have placed nearly all control of my assets into their hands. My attorney was deeply concerned. Then we uncovered something even worse. Ethan had already contacted financial institutions pretending to help manage my affairs. He had been positioning himself to gain influence over accounts worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. The betrayal hit harder than I can describe. This was not some scammer. This was my own son. The boy I had raised, the man I had trusted. For several days, I barely slept. I kept asking myself where I had gone wrong. How had love become greed? How had family become a business transaction? Then I remembered Sophie. The only person who had acted out of pure honesty was an 8-year-old child. That realization gave me clarity. I decided it was time to protect myself. Over the next month, I completely reorganized my estate plans. I created safeguards that prevented anyone from gaining control without independent oversight. I updated legal documents, secured my accounts, and ensured that my wishes could not be manipulated. Most importantly, I established a trust that would directly benefit Sophie in the future, not because she exposed her parents, but because she demonstrated integrity, something money cannot buy. Eventually, I confronted Ethan. The conversation was one of the hardest moments of my life. At first, he denied everything. Then he blamed misunderstandings. Then he blamed financial stress. Finally, the truth emerged. He believed he deserved access to my wealth because he was my only son. The entitlement in his voice broke my heart. I told him something I will never forget. Inheritance is a gift, not a right. Respect cannot be demanded. It must be earned. That conversation ended our relationship for a long time. Months later, I still missed the son I thought I had. But I no longer miss the illusion. Today, I spend most of my time with Sophie. She still visits every weekend. We still bake cookies. We still watch old movies. And every time I look at her, I am reminded that character matters more than money. Because in the end, the person who protected me was not the adult who expected my inheritance. It was the little girl who valued honesty more than greed. And if she had not whispered that warning into my ear on my birthday, I might have lost everything I spent a lifetime building. Sometimes the smallest voice in the room carries the most important truth.